Form from Imagination, a course designed to help you draw with confidence from your mind. Maybe you want to be a professional illustrator or designer, maybe you want to be a master with a pencil, or maybe you just want to be the best artist that you can be. Beautiful goals, but it's not always clear how to improve the work that you do from imagination. Over the past 6 months, I've taken all of the little eurekas, tips, and essential exercises that gave me confidence drawing from my mind and compiled them into a sequential course. We start with the absolute foundations, covering the scientific nature of light and shadow, how to hatch, how to create flat tones, how to render spheres and cubes, and step by step, we move through combined shapes, complex shapes, organic shapes. We cover how to simplify extremely complex subjects like the head into basic shapes so that you can handle them more easily from your head. We look at how to understand and treat details. And by the end of these 14 chapters with over 50 video lessons, you'll be ready to do complex designs from your mind with fidelity and energy. And all the demos are done in pencil on paper, so you can do all of the assignments even if you don't have a fancy digital art setup. But I also have demos, instructions, and modifications to the assignments for those who do want to do them digitally. Here's how it works. Go to formfromimagination.com and sign up for the course. Download the assignment book and start watching the lectures. Do the assignments at your own pace. Take your time with them and use this self-study to develop your patience. When you're done, post your assignments in the exclusive community hub, and I'll personally critique your work with drawovers, diagrams, and advice. I want you to know, this course is no joke just because it's online. It is challenging content, and it is more complete than it would be if I was teaching this class at an art college as I have before. If I was teaching this class in person at Art Center today, I would just play these videos in class, knowing full well that they're the most concise, focused, edited, step-by-step way to convey the material. So I'm serious when I say, this course isn't just a substitute for a college-level course, it's better than a college-level course. And you don't have to pay thousands of dollars per credit and wind up hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. So thank you for checking out the course, thank you for watching this and for your support, and thank you for drawing and making your artwork. The world needs it. I'll see you soon. Hello. Hello to Overactive Imagination, Renola Dominguez, Fictional Key Art, Warrington, Fieselfeet, and 4 Blasphemy. It's time for Morning Doodles. Morning Doodles. How's my audio? Do I sound loud enough? Do I sound loud enough? I feel like I gotta go a little more. How do I sound? How do I sound? Am I loud enough? Hello, tutata. Tutata. I'm flicking through Animal Anatomy by Elliot Goldfinger for a second here. Giraffe characteristics. Giraffe characteristics, very tall with long neck. That is true. That is true, actually. As far as what I've seen from giraffes, bony prominences of neck vertebra can be seen on the surface. Usually cover the neck, begin low on the side of the, whoa. Nostrils, closable. Now that's surprising. What book is this? This is Elliot Goldfinger's Animal Anatomy. Yeah, Animal Anatomy for Artists. Yo, look at that hippo. What the? I like a rhino, I do. That elephant looks like it's made out of marble because of the value range. I wonder if it's like covered in very light clay or something like that. It's like an unusually low contrast. Like, look how bright the shadows on the elephant seem compared to the darks in the background. It looks odd. There's either a photographic thing going on there, like an overexposure, or it's like on some very white sand or covered in mud or something like that. Frame drops for a second or two. Yeah, I don't know. I'm seeing that my internet is unstable here for a second, but it's okay. If it returns and the stream gets unstable, I'll just sign off and cancel it, and you guys don't get to watch me draw, and who cares really? So, whoa, look at the weird anatomy of a sea lion. Man, that's odd. All right. We'll let that percolate. I'm going to kill this sketchbook, I think. I doubt this has any juice left in it. Yeah, that's trash. Where is the one I was just freaking using? JC Mark says, what's your favorite color? Gray. Of course. Gray, gray, gray. As usual, when I'm doing traditional on stream, I'm mostly just trying to find what markers have juice left in them. That's what I will spend most of my time doing. I hate Copics because, I mean, they're great markers, but quality of life wise, I hate that It's like, because they're refillable, when I find one that's dry, I can't just throw out the marker like I do with my other markers. With my Tombos, when I find a dry marker, I just throw it over my shoulder, and then at the end of the session, I walk it over to the garbage can and throw it out. But you can't do that with Copics because they're technically refillable. The thing is that I never actually buy the refills, so they just wind up building up in my drawers. Good morning, Donnie. Can you put a little alcohol in the pen to survive them? No. You have to put a toner in them, which you can buy, but you can also like breathe on them, but you know, that'll sort of give you a little bit of more juice for a few minutes, but a lot of my markers are really old, years and years old, so they are truly dry. They need a real refill. But yeah, I never wind up actually buying the refills. What value percent of gray? I don't even remember what I put down. I think that was a neutral number 3. Which is, that doesn't really correspond to like a 30% gray on some absolute value scale, you know? It's really mostly just like the markers compared to each other. What are we drawing this morning? I don't know, I'm just doodling for now, and then I might switch to doing some studying. Animals, if I study. Hello, Star Driver. JC says, hi, Stephen. When you do thumbnails for design, how many do you make before you choose? Or do you just keep drawing until you find the one? Just keep drawing. The janitor says, hello, Stephen. How would you render fire in graphite? I don't know, because I've never done it. And I rarely do special effects like that in graphite. Based on how I would render it in a painting, you know, the main trick would be to make the make the surrounding stuff dark, because the main thing about fire is that it's a light source, it glows, and the number one way to make something look like it's glowing is to make everything around it dark. So my gut tells me that would be the most important thing. Any incidental flourishes that you may do to like the shape of the fire, the licking flames, the smoke, that's all going to be secondary to does it actually look like a light source. That's always going to be the most important thing. What's a good way to study composition? You can't really study composition in abstract. Like, improving your composition is improving your understanding of the elements of art and the principles of design. So if you deepen your understanding of the elements and the principles, you will automatically deepen your quality of thought for composition. The act of composing is just, what you do with everything in your picture. It's not a separate element. As always, just draw seems to be the answer. Yep, and that is the ultimate answer. People have improved at art, been great at art for all of culture, in completely different social and technological paradigms, believing all sorts of crazy things about art, and they still got better. So, we play games with objective answers, and we all love to explore within our current cultural and social paradigm, but the truth is that you could believe anything about any part of art, and as long as you kept drawing, you would get better. Hi, nice. Hi, the gamer. Anthony says, is the Pearl Blackwing lighter than the matte black? I have a box of naturals. I've only used 2 in the past year. I honestly could not tell you. I've tried the gray one. I've tried the black one. I've tried the white one. They're all basically the same to me. I don't know. They say that like one's lighter than the other, one's softer, harder than the other. I think the differences are so subtle, especially if you use other pencils, that for all intents and purposes, all 3 are the same. I just think of all 3 as Blackwings, and the Blackwing occupies a particular hardness scale in my head when compared to like my Strathmores or my Tombos or whatever, but amongst the 3, they all just sit in the same family. If you only use the 3, I'm sure you could build up a reliable sort of detection of the differences between the 3, but not for me. Morning, Cinder. Good to see you, man. You use Tombow, Steven? They're my favorite marker, but I always struggle with muddling color. I do, yeah. These are, I think this one was I think that patch was a Tombow. Right now, the thing I'm working over right now is a Copic marker splotch, but I like the Tombows a lot. You always struggle with muddling color? Yeah, I find Copics are better for blending, for me personally, but the Tombows have a really lovely, well, their main benefit is that they're water-based. So there's a lot of things water-based markers, water-based markers and alcohol markers have different abilities, so it's kind of apples to oranges comparing them, but there's certain things that you just want to use a water-based marker for. Like, you could take your own spit even and sort of smudge it around or blend it with a water marker, things like that. But the nice thing about the Tombows for me is that rather than blending, they have a very nice effect where if you quickly lay them over each other, you get a clean overlap of the colors, and they'll even mix optically. So like if you put there's certain yellow and blue Tombows that when you wait just the right amount of time and lay the blue over the yellow, you'll get a green, which is awesome. Have you ever studied Anatomy for Artists by Tom Fox? No, that might be a newer one. I think like most artists, when I went through my period of really focusing on anatomy, I went through sort of the books of my era, and since my era, many more anatomy books have come out, but I haven't really read them because I'm not in that focused textbook style anatomy learning period anymore. So my anatomy for artists was Elliot Goldfinger's Anatomy for Artists, and a lot of other books. Hold on, I'm gonna go to the bathroom. I forgot to go to the bathroom before I started stream. I'll be right back. Steven, I'm curious. I know I probably shouldn't focus on results, but is there a way to still feel accomplished day to day, or is this just a mindset issue for me? Yes, it's a mindset issue. If you don't feel accomplished day to day, it's almost always just because of comparison, or you have an unrealistic goal with your art. We tend to package it different ways, but at its core, the unrealistic goals are usually things like you're going to prove yourself to your mom or your dad with art. So if you have that, that's definitely going to trip you up and you'll never feel happy at the end of a drawing session. If you've got things aligned, you should be able to feel good after every session because you did this thing that you really care about, and you made time for yourself. And your inability to take satisfaction in that is always because an imbalance with other things in your life. Just seeing how many pages I have left in this sketchbook. Tutata says, Stephen, meditation question. Did you ever have transcendental experiences that made you temporarily stop caring for art? If so, how did you overcome them? Not caring about art is just another experience. Not caring about art is just another sequence of thoughts that are producing a narrative that you take seriously and then react to. So to some degree, it's like, what have you transcended if that still has somewhere to land, you know? I've definitely had some, you know, the word transcendental gets caught up with, for a lot of people, the word transcendental carries a moralistic baggage, right? Like a transcendent experience is a better experience, things like that. I don't think that's true. From that lens, I have had transcendental experiences, but the idea that notions of caring or not caring about art could sort of interface with that is just no way. You know, they're not of they're not of this they're not of the sphere of this experience to some extent, you know. It's just like very difficult to put into words, you know. Yeah, very difficult to put into words. If I had to try to be mundane, no, they have not. They have only made me want to do art more, not care about it less. Arctic Monkey says, just started working on a personal piece. Very good. Very good. Joan says, I have hard time setting a plan for learning process. I sit down every day for 2 hours, but I usually copy another artist. Do you have any recommendations to at a good plan? I have tons of books and comics, and honestly, I don't know how to approach them or even use them. Forget all that. I always want to ask when people ask something like this, like, you probably don't need my advice. Every time I actually get to sit down with another artist, with a student, and actually interrogate them, it always turns out that they've thought about this a ton, and they already have tons of very sophisticated thoughts about it, and they would give themselves the same advice that I would give them. They just won't take their own advice. So what I would say to you is, forget everything everyone else has said, books, programs, things like that. And it's okay to not draw, to work on your drawing. Give yourself a week to just sit down and write for yourself what you think you should do. And don't try to veer it towards the books that you have. Start from zero and just write for yourself what you think you should do. I know that you know what to say to yourself. I know you know what to say to yourself. Then just have the courage to actually go through with it. And whatever you wrote, it'll work. There is no correct way to go through art. So whatever you write for yourself in that exercise, I can guarantee you 100% it will work. You just need to actually do it. Whoop. Forgot that using alcohol markers over the graphite smears the graphite everywhere. Thank you, Farius Place. Tony the Tiger is looking badass. You're damn right. Do you usually use oil markers? Are they oil? No, these are alcohol markers. But these days I use water-based markers more often than these alcohol markers. I used to use these alcohol markers all the time back in college, though. So I have a lot of experience with them. Looks like a furry Thundercat. I mean, aren't Thundercats already furry? Maybe Thundercats originated furrydom. Could be, as far as I know. Stephen, what is the thing you like least about the drawing process? Eraser crumbles, graphite smudges, forgetting that really cool concept you dreamed about last night. What do I like least? Documenting. Scanning, taking photos, recording. Basically everything else I quite like as long as I'm in the mood for it. Even erasing is fun if you keep your drawing brain on while you erase.
For my pencil techniques, the erasing step is essential. I actually create a lot of my textures and forms with the eraser. But you know, those are my incredible techniques, well acknowledged by the board of superior draftsmen to be the most superior of superior techniques. Most other people's techniques, you know, they're not really going to have the opportunity to have all the fun all the time like that. But, you know, it's my preference to use the best drawing techniques ever devised in the history of drawing. So I use them because I invented them, and keeps it fun all the time. But it ain't for everybody, you know. It ain't for everybody because they're not allowed, you know. They don't have approval from the board of superior draftsmen to use the most powerful techniques, so they're stuck using other stuff. How do you remember how to draw animals? I don't remember. I've been brainstorming on a picture that has a bunch of animals in it, and I don't remember any of them. I have to brush up on them, look at references, look at anatomy, look at photos, sketch some of it. I did that on a stream a couple episodes ago. And then put all that stuff away and draw them from my memory. But it's not an active process, and you remember the things you practice. So I might practice just enough to sort of approximate a goat or a sheep or an elephant from memory the next day. But if I then don't draw an elephant for a year, you'd better believe I definitely will have forgotten what it looks like. You know, you retain what you practice. You know, I draw a human figure probably every day, so I'm in no danger of forgetting what humans look like or how to put them together. But you know, there was a time where I could draw a Range Rover and a Jaguar F-Type from memory in any position because I had to for a job that I did for months. I could not do that now, you know, even though that was in my past. I could not draw a Range Rover from memory right now. I can't even quite recall what the front of a Range Rover looks like. Do you watch nature documentaries? Oh yeah, all the time. Steven, can you draw while hungry? I can, but I don't. Favorite outdoor spot for sketching? Anywhere in front of a tree. Trees are my favorite things in the outdoors, so. Lorenzo says, hey, Stephen, how do you balance consuming art, inspiration, and producing your own art? I always struggle to find a balance that makes me feel comfortable. To some degree, the notion of balance is constructed. It's an illusion, right? Like most students and concerned artists these days, when they are looking for balance, they don't really mean balance. They mean, I want to fit art into needs I am projecting onto it based on my life goals and current culture. So underneath the notion of balance, balancing consuming art and producing your own art, it's probably more about, I think I'm supposed to be drawing every day so that I can get good to become a professional artist, or I need to be doing 4 commissions a month to make this much money. All that kind of thinking is usually what's underneath the notion of balance. Life does not actually need, or art doesn't really need balance from you. And different cultural paradigms and notions change completely the way we think about art. So, for example, think about Leonardo da Vinci, right? He is one of the most famous painters of all time and considered to be one of the all-time greats. He did, I think the count is about 16 paintings in his entire life. So how much balance between inspiration and productivity do you think is required there to hit the 16 great paintings, right? I can't name this person, though there is examples already, but there is a theoretical great master who just does one incredible painting in his entire life. That's not impossible, and probably it will happen at some point in history. So I think the most important thing is to really scrutinize what assumptions about balance you have that really don't align with what you really want. I've undermined a lot of them for myself, but I think that you should let yourself be happy. I'm ignoring here the possibility that you have an art job, right, or something like that, where if there's deadlines, there's nothing to say about deadlines. It's just you need to meet your deadlines, right? Or you should. If you don't, you'll lose the job, and all right, people lose jobs. So if we ignore that, I think that you should basically be comfortable letting yourself consume and get inspired basically for very long periods of time. There's nothing inherently wrong about any arbitrary amount of time of taking in inspiration. I mean, you need to be reasonable and know when you're just playing video games, but short of that, if you're intentional and deliberate, it doesn't matter if you say, I'm going to potentiate my unconscious for the next 5 years. Like, it really doesn't matter, right? And no one can tell you you're wrong to do that. You just need to have the courage of your convictions. You need to be deliberate about what you're doing. And if that seemed a little too airy, just to get back to the heart of the matter, the idea of like, how do you find balance? I'm going to level with you, man. This is art. You're probably, statistically speaking, it's going to be very hard to find anything that looks normal or balanced in it. It's going to, like most artists, you're going to go through periods where art consumes your life, and then you're going to hate art, and you're going to go into the woods. And then you're going to, when you're in the woods, you're going to reach a period where you go, oh, art wasn't so bad. And then you're going to come back to art and it's going to consume your life again. And that's just, statistically speaking, that's what you're going to do. It's like, to a certain degree, the traditional notions of balance are just not really on the table for artists, right? And if you just accept that, I think that you'll find that it can actually, the acceptance can make the whole thing a much more peaceful experience than we tend to think at the beginning. What time is it for you? It is 10:42 a.m. 10:42 in the morning here in Nueva York. Okay, I guess he's got to have a hat now. Nah, but I don't really want a bigger face. And this marker's dry, like always. I'm just gonna start, I just gotta admit to myself I'm never gonna buy the refills, and I just gotta start throwing these out and re-upping them, or buying new ones. It's just markers I can actually buy at Michael's and pick them, but the refills you can only get them online. You know, very few art stores carry them, so it's just so, you never get around to doing it. You know, you never get around to going to Jerry's Artorama or whatever and looking up, okay, which color was it that went dry? Because then you need to take out the old ones, be like, right, this is the one that went dry. Look up the color code by there. It's like you never do. Damien says, Steven, a couple streams ago you answered a question of mine and you talked about your mythical figure. Could you elaborate on that or recommend readings? Sounds like Joseph Campbell. I don't quite remember what I said, and I'm not sure, without the context, I'm not sure what I meant by mythical figure. I talk a lot about myths. I talk a lot about the unscrutinized myths that people have in their heads around art, and how those myths drive our intuitions. And if your myths are unscrutinized and bad, then they usually drive your intuitions in a bad way. The good news is that you can, through awareness, you know, through just paying attention to them and being made aware that your myths drive your intuitions, you can sort of get your arms around them and change them. You can pick new myths. And when you integrate a new myth, it will actually change your intuitions. So that's always really what we should be going for, you know, sort of conceptual bombs around painful ideas and concepts. They can help, you know, you sort of, you know, you could psych yourself up in the mirror with them, you know, tell yourself, be calm, be calm, be calm. But they're Band-Aids, you know, they're only temporary. For changing the myth and thereby changing the intuitions causes actual change in the ground floor of how you experience your emotions and your feelings around not just art, but anything. So that's always the best thing we could be going for most of the time. So I just generally recommend, you know, keep editing those myths, keep analyzing them. I like your wallpaper in the background. Thank you, TB. It's not a wallpaper. It's painted on, actually. It's a stencil. It was a pain in the ass to do. Hi, Omar. Sad says, hi, Stephen. Good morning to you. Good morning. Do you have a minute to explain what is a good combination of drawing pencils and papers to suggest for beginners and intermediate artists? Paper matters way more than pencil. Almost any drawing effect is possible with any pencil, including just normal yellow #2 schoolhouse pencils. So any professional grade of drawing pencil is certainly more than you need to do any effect. It doesn't matter which one. It comes down to complete personal taste. Blackwings, Stadler, Prismacolors. I'm just going to grab some brands from Faber-Castell. What do I have here? This is a Tombow Mono. Any professional grade of drawing pencil is more than adequate. When it comes to pencils, the actual pencil you're using changes almost nothing. Paper matters a lot. And no particular paper, right? But the big difference is don't use cheap paper. That's my big advice. I think it's different if you're trying to do digital art or something like that, or if you want to move, or if your main focus is moving on to doing like oil paintings or things like that. But for people who want to do beautiful drawings, I think one of the worst things that's very common is that they spend way too long on cheap sketchbook paper. I don't think that's a good idea. You should be using very good stock most of the time. So these sketchbooks, this one that I'm drawing in is I flipped it, I closed it as if there was a brand on the front. There isn't a blank. This is a Moleskine Sketchbook Series sketchbook. It's expensive. You should use, even if it's not a sketchbook, a pad of paper, whatever, you want to use expensive paper as much as possible. So by expensive, I mean really good paper in the US. You're going to have to translate for your own area. But in the US, you should be paying about 75 cents per sheet, right? So let's round that up to $1. Let's say you're buying a pad of paper. If it's 25 sheets for around $25, that's good paper, right? Don't use cheap paper for serious stuff. The reason for this, sketchbook, the main benefit of high quality paper is that it stands up to abuse. You can erase, you can scrape, you can redo a lot. And for most people's processes, that is going to be important to be able to do, even if it's just while learning, right? Even if you're going to do less erasing later, almost everybody needs to do it while they learn. And for a lot of drawing techniques, like I said earlier in the stream, erasing is essential. For me, erasing is not about correcting. Most of the time that I'm erasing, I'm doing it to draw, to create effects, to make the drawing more beautiful. You can only do this with any great depth on good paper. Cheap paper falls apart. Cheap paper also takes less graphite. So there's all sorts of things I could say about cheap paper, but the main overarching idea is cheap paper limits how much of your abilities you can rehearse. And so you're not actually practicing everything that you're capable of. To practice everything that you're capable of in pencil, you need to use high quality paper so that you can run it all the way up and down the flagpole often. So in my drawing course, Form from Imagination, I advise people get off of. It's one of the most common notes I give for people who get the feedback version is their first assignment. They send me the picture and I can see that it's in a sketchbook, right? I can see the ring binding. And I always say, get out of your sketchbook. Get on the good paper that I recommend in the material section as fast as possible. It is for most people a waste of time to be practicing things like rendering, especially on cheap paper. It's like your cheap paper is not going to feel the way that the paper you want to do your real finished drawings on is going to feel. So why are you practicing a process that is not going to be the process for your finished pieces? Everything about it doesn't make sense. Again, if doing beautiful pencil drawings is not your main focus, then it doesn't matter, then use cheap paper as much as you want because you're just using it for planning, right? And even if you do focus on doing finished, elaborate drawings, if you're just in a planning process, then yes, it's totally fine to use cheap paper. But if you're doing anything like practicing making beautiful drawings, do it on good stock. Always do it on good stock. And yeah, the pencils make almost no difference, but paper makes a huge difference. As to smooth papers, grainy papers, that's all personal preference. You can get most effects on either. You can do very smooth rendered drawings on grainy paper, for the record. In fact, some people will debate that it's easier to do a perfectly smooth render on grainy paper. I don't know if I agree with them, but my personal preference is for very smooth paper. I like Strathmore 400 series bristle paper smooth. That's my favorite paper. But a lot of artists, they can't stand how smooth it feels. They need a little more texture. Total personal preference. Smooth paper does not equal smooth renderings. I've seen renderings much more refined and slick than anything I can achieve, done on paper way grainier than I could stand. It's all personal preference. What are some sketchbooks you can recommend? What brand, please? Thank you. I like the Moleskine sketchbook papers. They're basically the only sketchbooks I like. But it really is down to personal preference. It really is down to personal preference. Akram Photo Art says, sends 15 EGP. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Oh, and that was your 10th super on a live. It's cool. I think only one other person has hit 10. That's very special. Thank you so much, Akram. That's awesome. I use the Moleskine paper because it's good. It's good smooth stock. It's good smooth stock that I can do finished drawings on. But as I said, for a lot of people, smooth paper is not the way to go. For people who like textured paper, I've heard a lot of good things about, what's it called? There is a sketchbook that comes up a lot as a favorite for people who like more textured surfaces. I want to say it is the Applebee Deluxe. I think it's the Applebee Deluxe multimedia paper. I have tried it. I do not like it because I don't like textured paper as a rule. But I hear that one brought up a lot by people who like texture. I also have a, what's it called? Zern? Not Stern. Stillman and Byrne. Kind of see it there. Stillman and Byrne Zeta series. This is a nice, smooth, high quality sketchbook paper. I haven't done much on this. I've used them a couple times in the past, but very smooth, perfectly adequate for the kind of rendering that I like and things like that. But I wind up sticking with the Moleskines because these are more expensive and there's not much of a difference. So I just wind up going with the one that's cheaper. Hello, Atali. I gotta go to the bathroom again because I've been drinking a lot of coffee. I'll be right back. Steven, doing hatching on digital feels impossible. Will a screen tablet help with it? For something that finicky, probably, yeah, but I don't know if it would help. You know, I don't know if it'll make $400 worth of difference, you know? It's like all of those really finicky things, they're always better done traditional, you know? Because I mean, drawing digital still sucks even with a screen tablet. Is Cyberpunk 2077 okay now? That's funny. I was just looking that up the other day. I recently played Titanfall 2. and it sort of piqued my appetite for a sci-fi shooter thing, single player thing. Last time I got that itch, I played Destiny for a little bit, but I don't really like multiplayer games, so Destiny fell off very quickly for me. Hi, Joe. Dorobo says, I think 2077 is still not okay. Have you tried sculpting? Yep. Steven, what do you think is the best way to manage art projects when you are really new to it? Well, the most practical piece of advice I can give is to make a chart. Put the deliverables on one side of the chart, put the process steps on the other side, and have all these cells that you can sort of use to organize what you need to do. But in a more meta sense, I think the best thing you could do is work with somebody else. If you're really, really new to it, it's going to be very difficult to just stay trapped in your own head about it the whole time. I think the best thing you could do is get a partner, bring somebody else on board. Just you need to get it for project managerial stuff. You need to get it out of your head, and you need to have someone to talk to about it. Having to talk about things is like a magic spell. You will discover that you think and know things about the project that you never would have realized if you never talked about it to somebody. Hi, Zane. Knife says, I don't know if this sounds insane. You guys ever been so focused it feels like the drawing is just kind of happening in front of you without you, even though you know you're the one drawing it? First time here? It's like what this whole channel is about. Definitely does not sound insane. That is what art is all about. Then Knife says, what the hell, how do I do that? The first video on this channel is about that. If you go all the way back to my oldest video, it's either the oldest or the second oldest. How to get in the zone. I'll walk you right through it. This doodle looks like a Victorian Janice. I don't know who Janice is. Is that an anime character? Usually when people say characters around here, it's from an anime. And then I say, I don't watch anime. And they say, oh, you should watch this one. It's different though. It isn't. It's never different. Steven, the type of guy to cite himself. Yeah, well, I'm the only person actually helping. I'd cite other people if anyone else was on the same wavelength. But everyone else is 40 steps behind, baby. Another dry marker. Steven, how do we differentiate between texture, soft local tone change, and subtle halftones defining form? Sorry for repeating, but it bothers me. To a certain degree, you don't have to. It's like on a meta level, you can make the distinction, but if you just think about it in the abstract in terms of value, if a texture change, so let's say like a local color change, is the same value as a subtle halftone change, then for all intents and purposes, they're the same, and you don't need to differentiate. Yeah. And when you're drawing, it can be really fun to play with that and exaggerate that, or just design that in, you know? It's fun to move in and out of lighting change, like lighting values, transforming into textures, and then transforming back into value changes. It's one of the beauties of pencil is that you can just blend all of those things together, whereas if you were working in color, you would have to sort of maintain some verisimilitude to the hues there, and you wouldn't quite be able to run them together like that. This one's a self-portrait. Damn this dry marker. I don't like working into these scratchy fields. It never looks right in the end. Good luck, Arctic. Oh, I gotta move my camera, huh? Widen out. How do you create your own stuff and not copies all the time? You just do it. Just don't copy. And just expect discomfort. Just need to spend a long time doing it. The thing that makes most people bounce off is that they think that things are supposed to look great when they do their own stuff. And then when it doesn't look great, they get upset and they stop doing it. And then they get stuck copying things, because when they copy things, of course, things look better because they're coasting off of the designs of others, right? But you need to be realistic. You need to accept that you're only as good as you're supposed to be at this moment. So it's okay if things look bad. It's just to be expected. You don't have enough practice. And you didn't eat a good breakfast. So just don't bounce off. That's why it's usually so much easier to go through that period where you just sort of get the initial familiarity with drawing from your head as a kid, because you're less judgmental and comparative. But you can absolutely do that as an adult. You just need to be aware of how your judgments and comparisons and false expectations are tripping you up. If you're aware of it, you'll be able to just chill a bit and let yourself draw. Just give it a while to build up that initial familiarity. Kyo, hi Kyo. Hi Stephen, I know you always have a timer going, but for your finished pencil work, do you keep a grand total of hours the entire piece took, or do you only time the individual sessions? I guess I do. I don't do a tight log. Like, I don't have a file where I'm like logging the hours I spend on that particular drawing. But usually when I lock down on a very complex pencil drawing, that's the only drawing I do for the weeks it takes me to finish it. You know, it just happily consumes me. And I use a to-do list that's on my phone. It's just a notepad to-do list. And, you know, if drawing session is on the to-do list, when I check it off, I tend to put the hours that I spent that day on it. So if I did 2 hours that day, I put 2, 6, whatever. So then when the drawing is done, if I want, I can scroll back through my to-do list and add up the numbers and basically get a count for how long it took. Stephen, what do you think is the best way to find other artists to communicate with when you are working at a regular job? I would start by looking in your local area. Like, even in pretty small towns and cities, if you go to like meetup.com or something like that, like someone's got like an outdoor sketching group, or there's some bar that you wouldn't even think it, but they do life drawing like twice a month or something like that. I would start there. Almost all of those kinds of events are held weekends or at nights to accommodate the fact that most people going to them have day jobs. So and if you're in a really small town and your area really has none of those, consider being the one to start it. Steven, have you seen Look Back? No. No. All right, everybody, I just saw the time and I'm gonna start wrapping up here. I got my morning doodles in, but I have some writing I need to do, and I want to get some of it done before lunch, so I'm gonna start signing off here. If anyone's got any last questions, throw them in the chat. I'll try to lightning round any questions that pop up. And thanks for hanging out here for the morning doodles. You know how it is with the morning doodles. You know how it is. When are you starting the next stream? I usually go in the mornings Eastern time on the weekdays. Weekend streams are pretty rare for me, like this. Yeah, it's usually like 10 a.m. Eastern time, 11 a.m. Eastern time. Sunday, Monday through Fridays. I don't really keep a set schedule. Set schedules are poison to artists, so I don't pretend. And there's lots of old ones on the, if you go to a live stream tab on my YouTube, there's tons of old ones. What are your best tips for building smooth value with graphite pencil? Just manually fill in the dots. If you're really going for smoothness, if the main thing that's applicable to all pencil artists that most never really wrap their head around is that if you really want it smooth, you can just work for it. Like, it doesn't have to be the result of a particular process. You can just put down a tone, and then it doesn't look smooth because there's all this grain, right? You can just take a sharp pencil and poke every individual bit of grain. And if you do that for less time than you'd think, it'll look really smooth. That will do it. Now, for me, a little boost that I like to give myself there is that I like to use a blending stump to put a little patch of gray down in an area before I go in with the pencil. That helps a little bit, but a lot of people hate using blending stumps. They don't like the feeling of them. It's like nails on a chalkboard, so it's not for everybody. Kyo says, thanks, your process is interesting to hear, like how drawing sessions are included in your to-do list. Do you ever feel trapped by your to-do list and that putting drawing on it or not changes things? So there's been times where I have felt trapped by my to-do list, but to a certain degree, we need to just accept that life is responsibilities and things that need to get done. You know, you're not ever going to get to a place of perfect freedom and not having things that you have to do. You know, life is friction. You know, that's just a natural part of life. But I do mostly use my to-do list now as a, I don't know if you've ever heard this concept before, but instead of a to-do list, a done list. So there's days where I have a bunch of things I know I need to do. And on those days, I will fill the to-do list in with those things in the manner of a traditional to-do list. And at this point in my life, most days, you know, I do a lot of long-term projects, you know, working on courses and things like that. So it's like, for things like that, it's like there's something that's on the to-do list every day, you know, every day for, you know, years or whatever. So there's always a little bit of that. But the rest, I don't know, I struggling with the language here. Like, I also treat it as a done list, which is a different concept. Maybe you've heard other people bring it up, but let's say that you didn't have anything you needed to do, so there was nothing to put on the to-do list. You just begin the day with the notion that you have a done list, like a things I've done list, and that just automatically structures your day. You know you're going to, whatever you do, you can do anything, right? You're going to put it on the list, and at the end of the day, you'll be able to look back on it. I find that for me, that doesn't make me feel trapped. I basically just follow my nose, right? I want to read a book. I want to exercise. I want to call a friend. And I'll just follow my nose. But it's almost like the idea of doing a diary or journal at the end of the day, like just knowing you're going to have to make yourself accountable for what you did sort of structures your thinking more throughout the day. And yeah, so I use my to-do list as a done list as well. And I'll put anything on there. You know, the other day I put, you know, the other day there was an entry on my to-do list that was just be a human being with a friend, check. You know, I did that. That was a task. You know, I just give myself, you know, that's something I did today, right? And instead of just taking it as an incidental or a chore, you know, I'm not going to explain exactly what was going on there, but it's like through a more mundane lens, you'd have said that was just a chore being accomplished, but I would rather think of it as being an engaged interpersonal person in the world. So I put it down on the done list as be a human being with a friend, right? Yeah, so you can, you know, you can use lists like that in all sorts of ways. Tired Enio says, how does one decide a project if they have multiple floating around? I mean, cut them viciously. Just like pick the thing that is actually most interesting to you. A lot of questions like that are mostly coming from artists being confused as to like what is actually most important to them. If you really burrowed down on what you care about the most in life, it would make it much more obvious to you what projects are more important than others. And, you know, we we're all fallible. Like that doesn't mean, then cut out everything that isn't the most important thing, right? Like only freaks are going to be able to do that, right? Like we need to give ourselves some dither as fallible and weak-willed human beings. But it's like there is a spectrum of possibility there where you'd have really strong convictions about what themes actually matter to you, what you want your art to do in the world. That would clarify most of it. The sharper and sharper those opinions get about what you're doing with your work, the more obvious it would be that there's probably only one that right now is the most aligned with your deepest values. And the others are just things that you're kind of vaguely interested in, or especially they keep coming to mind just because you think they'll do well with audiences or something like that. And that's, it's useful as far as it goes, but it's not necessarily aligned with your deepest values. Hi, Boxer Wing. Good morning. I'm leaving now. I'll take this last question. Mohammed says, hey, Stephen, I have this issue where I always feel sluggish in the early process, but always energetic by the end. Or I put work off and tell myself I will work on the piece for hours, but do nothing. I think a lot of people feel that way. I feel like I feel that way. That the beginning is always a bit of a slog, or just feels different. Just think about, to a certain degree, you just need to really focus on, I know it's going to suck for 20 minutes, but once I'm an hour in, I'll feel great, and just go for that. It gets easier and easier to do that as the years go on. But I think that's just natural. I think that's just totally natural. All right, everybody. I'm gonna go. Take care. If you're drawing today, I hope your session goes very well. Happy drawing to you. And I will see you all soon. Goodbye to Carol. Goodbye to May. Goodbye to Boxer Wing. Goodbye to Tired Ennio. Goodbye to Muhammad. Goodbye to Boxer Wing. Goodbye to Kyokusei. Goodbye to Knife. Goodbye to Wes. Goodbye to Dub Nico. Goodbye to Rain, Ali Z, Farius Pace, and For Blasphemy. Bye, everybody. Peace.